Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the Hockey Writers Fantasy Forecheck podcast. As always, I am your host, Jacob Strozyk, joined again by my co-host, who's back.
Yeah, I missed last week, but I'm Jacob Billington, and I'm ready to talk some fantasy.
So as always, we're going to be going through this week's fantasy trends, players that you should drop and pick up, anything you might be looking for as far as trades, and any teams that are hot and cold, so you might be looking for some steals and deals in that department as well. Before we do anything else, as always, we're also going to have our question of the week. For this one, do you feel that bigger leagues are more challenging than smaller ones? So, like, is it harder to find value using depth players, or is it harder to win against star-studded lineups?
Yeah, so there's definitely benefits to both. It's fun to have like Jack Hughes, Sidney Crosby, Mikko Rantanen, and Adam Fox all on the same team. So much fun. But I really enjoy. So we're in an 18-man league at the Hockey Writers, and I like that the most random people are actually on teams and contributing to it. And it's just it's more challenging because you have to go in depth and you have to really think about who are these young guys that are going to get a chance. You have to know rosters a bit better, and you just have to know the game a lot better. And so yeah, it just creates it's a totally different game than playing in a 6-man league, because then you're just like, oh, you could probably auto draft a 6-man league and still be fine. While when you're doing such a deep draft, there's so much thought that goes into each and every pick.
Yeah, I like both for different reasons, kind of like what you mentioned there. But as far as which one I would find harder, I'd say the superstar league is harder to get wins in because you really have to get lucky with, is this star player going to mesh with this other star player that I picked, and are they all going to be hot this week? Or am I going to accidentally pick the slumping player that shows up constantly, and then I'm not going to get anything at all? As opposed to, like you mentioned, the bigger league, where if you do that little bit of extra research and you know the rosters and you know the kids, you can really get a lot more value for yourself
Yeah.
if you're willing to put in that little bit of extra work. So I think it's a little bit easier to win in the bigger league, getting depth players and finding that, as opposed to the studded line. That's me though.
Yeah, no, I perfectly valid argument for either side. And both of them can be super fun, like I said. So
Oh yeah, yeah, they're
I'm in
both
one of
fun.
each. I'm in one with 8 people, and I'm in one with 18. So
Yep, exactly the same. My other league is 8, and this one's 18.
yeah.
So that's just the way it crumbles. So with that in mind, let's do some trending players, up or down. We could start either way. What do you want to go with? You want to do up or down first?
Let's start positive. I feel like over on the Senators Roundtable podcast, things have been negative lately. I need a bit of positivity going
All
through.
right, positivity. What do you got? Who do you got? Who do you want to talk about? Who's really getting your attention? Who do you want to talk about?
Well, first of all, we're going to talk about one of the most obvious, and we're going to talk about him a little bit later as well, as Alex DeBrincat. He is
Mm-hmm.
the hottest player in the league. He leads the league in goals. He leads the league in points, and just put another hat trick up tonight. There's no stopping DeBrincat right now. Um, and there's just Detroit is really clicking, especially on the power play. So if you get bonus points for power play points, you're set if you have anybody on that top unit.
Oh yeah. So if you're, as someone who kind of talks Red Wings a little bit extra, are you selling on DeBrincat? Are you holding DeBrincat? Where do you stand on that kind of line?
I'm gonna wait. If I had DeBrincat, I would probably wait another like 2 or 3 games and then sell him while he's still hot. He's obviously going to cool off quite a bit, and there's no chance that he's not scoring over a goal per game all season. He could certainly push 45, 50 goals. He's looking really good in Detroit, and yeah, but I think that right now people are going to be willing to overpay for him. So if you can get a really, really good value deal, absolutely take it, because he is going to slow down, but there's nothing wrong with holding on to him. So it all depends on what kind of offers come your way for him.
So if you have him, we're doing hypothetical completely here. You got him
Okay.
on your team. You're ready to make him as an offer for somebody. You're not looking for an incoming one. You're ready to offer him. What's the player you're looking to get as a return?
That's tough. Um,
or at
I mean,
least a caliber player,
there's so
even if you
many.
can't come up with one.
Right now, he's playing like a top five center, but generally he's not a top five center. But right now, I'm going to look at Elias Pettersson. Just the way that he started the season, I think that there could be a good deal surrounding DeBrincat and Pettersson right now, just depending on your team needs. But somebody in that caliber of player for sure.
So you wouldn't drop to somebody like maybe Kempe, who kind of has that consistency, or you could maybe go in for a younger player center like Martinez. Would you jump into something like that, or you think that's too high, too low?
I think that's too low for trading. I think even at like his regular 35 to 40 goal pace, I'll still take DeBrincat over Kempe um or Niches, but they're all around the same value probably over the whole season. So if you think one's going to get hot and you see DeBrincat starting to trend down, maybe that's a deal you're willing to make. But I would be looking for something a bit bigger than that. And maybe there's another like
Okay.
maybe there's a defenseman thrown in there if you have an extra spot on your roster if somebody's injured. Um, there's a lot of opportunity to make a deal.
But you're more on the sell train as opposed to the hold train in general.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's just
Hey,
because I do think he's going to slow down. He had a tough year in Ottawa last year, so he's bouncing back from that. He obviously wants to play in Detroit, and he admitted to being a bit lazy in Ottawa. So he's obviously not being lazy at all in Detroit, and it's great to see him succeeding. But he's going to cool off.
I agree. I think he'll cool off a little bit, but it's nice to have that little bit of extra, especially if you're someone who kind of gravitates toward Detroit players, or if you're someone who's a big Dylan Larkin believer. And if you have DeBrincat to kind of pair with him, you're going to be getting a lot of extra points right now, especially over the next, I'd say at least 2 weeks. I think you're right with that assessment. All right, let's do somebody out west. I want to talk about goaltender Jordan Binnington, Jordan the Walrus Binnington, as I call him. Uh, Last year, not great. Year before that, kind of but start to this year, at the very least, he's looking a little ridiculous. He's got a 2-1-0 start, a 959 save percentage, and a 1.26 goals against. Is that sustainable? Not in this year, the next, or the next 50 years beyond that. It's not going to happen. But as far as pickup trends, people might have been gravitating a little bit away from the Blues with, kind of how their team is built, not really playoff contenders, most likely. Not saying they aren't, but not most likely. So you don't really want to gravitate towards those types of goaltenders. But as of right now, he's a good pickup candidate for maybe your second goaltender. Or if you don't have a top goaltender, he'd be someone that could kind of fill that role for you, at least temporarily.
Yeah, I agree. He's off to a great start. Again, like St. Louis is going to fall off eventually. They don't have that good of a roster, but if he can continue playing like even 915, 920, then that's like that. That's exactly what you want from a goaltender in fantasy. Like you said, that up in the 950s is incredibly unsustainable, but he might go on a little bit of a run. Like he might continue this for a bit. Some people start the season hot, some people start it slow. It's just I don't know. Goalies are streaky. You don't usually see good game, bad game, good game. Like they go in
Mm-hmm.
10 game spurts at a time. So it's worth getting Binnington for the next little while at least, and see how that trends. But right now, I'm a huge fan of what he's doing for some teams.
On top of it, just as kind of like a note about goaltenders and early on in the year, everything's going to be bloated, whether it's good or whether it's bad. Everything for goaltenders is just super bloated because they don't play every game. So they're going to look absolutely amazing, or they're going to look absolutely terrible if they're, this type of goaltender, as opposed to maybe one of your more consistent ones. You're looking at like Sorokin, Ottinger, Shesterkin, that kind of grouping in there, where you know what you're going to get, and you're going to get that type of number. But for guys like this, it's going to be streaky, and that shouldn't make you stray away from them. It should make you kind of gravitate a little bit towards them if they're hot more than anything else.
Yeah.
All right. Who else you got?
I'm going to bring it back east, and I'm going to go to apparently one of the best teams in the NHL. Now, we know that they usually have good starts, but I'm going to go to the Philadelphia Flyers. They're off to an incredibly hot start. And defenseman Travis Sanheim, he is back. He had a really tough year last year, but this year he's already got 4 assists. He's got 11 shots, I believe. He's a plus, like he's a positive on the Flyers, and I know that they're playing well, but anybody that's positive in the plus minus category on the Flyers is quite impressive. And yeah, he's such a perfect defenseman for fantasy. Like you don't want him as your top defenseman, but with the 4 assists already, he's working his way into that conversation for the early parts of this season.
Yeah, Philly is their first in the Metro right now. Last time I checked, right?
Yep.
So yeah, hot team means hot players. So you're going to get decent value out of somebody like that. Me personally, I didn't really know Sanheim was off to that good of a start. So that is great for him because when I did have him, it was a couple of years ago, and he was really just a good, consistent defensive player, really good category coverage just across the board. So highly recommend Sanheim if you're looking for maybe a pickup or a cheap trade. I'm not sure if he'd be on waivers if his numbers are looking good at this point. But
only 6% rostered, and it's plus 5% in the last week.
Well, there you go. So definitely check that.
Check your leads.
That's Yahoo, right? Not the ESPN?
Yes, that's Yahoo.
Okay. I just want to check because the ESPN one gets a little weird sometimes with their percentage rostered. They have McDavid listed at 98 point something percent, and I'm like, no. But okay.
Yeah.
So I like to go off the Yahoo projections on that. Another guy, we'll stick with the East. We talked about him a little bit last week, so I just want to touch on him again. Evan Rodrigues. It's less about him and more about the Florida first line. They're just rolling. All three of them, Barkov, Rodrigues, and Sam Reinhart. Sam Reinhart has a lot of points right now, and he's doing really, really well. He's not somebody I would expect to be on waivers or anything like that. He's a good, top 6 player.
Yeah.
But he would be a sell candidate while we were on kind of that sell topic, because he's always good, at least for the past number of years, for about 30 plus goals and probably 30 plus assists, 60, maybe 70 points out of him. He has been point a game.
Yeah.
But he can hit that 70 plus point mark. And while he's really hot, I'd make a move with him so you can pick up somebody a little bit extra.
You got bit with Reinhardt already this year.
Yeah.
I got offered a pretty good trade on the surface. It was Philip Deneau and who was it? Andre Burakovsky for Reinhardt. And this was maybe 1 game into the season. Somebody needed some right wingers. I could have used some more depth. And so I was like, yeah, you know what? This is a pretty good deal. And whatever. And now, Deneau has 4 points so far, and Burakovsky is now out for 6 to 8 weeks. So, and I've already got my IR spots filled up. So, because I've got Montour, Vasilevsky, and Ristolainen, who I love Ristolainen in fantasy just for all the hits and blocks. Yeah. But I don't know. So I'm going to have to drop either Ristolainen or Burakovsky.
That's tough. Yeah. Burakovsky's great at scoring goals. So that is a tough one. I wouldn't know what to advise you there. Just drop Vasilevsky. Make your life easier.
Yeah.
Just let me know when you do it so I can just poach that. I'll watch the waiver wire.
I'll just trade him to you.
That's that. Hey, sure. I got Luke Shen on my IR. I'll make that trade.
Perfect.
Done deal right here. We got a few more. We can do some quick fire hot players. I got at least 2 or 3 more, so you go ahead.
No, that's all I got. I just had Sanheim and
all right.
Yeah.
The other ones I want to touch on just quick. 2 from Vegas Golden Knights got William Karlsson and Alec Martinez. I really like Martinez in fantasy, and I have my only problem every single time is his injuries.
Yeah.
Because he's out for extended periods of time. But when he plays, he's not doing top 6 minutes anymore.
Yeah.
But he still gets a decent number of points, but he's always getting blocks and he's always throwing hits. So he's constantly getting those extra categories and those extra points that'll kind of round out your roster. So I can't say enough to grab Alec Martinez and just use him in a depth role.
Yeah, and the amount of like he leads the league in blocks almost every year, and he misses at least 10 games a year. Like, and he's still all the way up at the top of the list. So it would be like if Connor McDavid missed 20 games a year, he's still going to win the Art Ross, but he's still worth having on your lineup for those 60 games or whatever Martinez is going to get you.
Yeah, and then I have William Karlsson on the list. He's got 4 points in his last 3 games, playing kind of that middle 6 role, and he's doing really well with it. Not somebody that I would have rostered on my team constantly, but I think he's a good cycle-in player right now, and especially with how hot Vegas is, he's definitely a pickup candidate and a play candidate as opposed to a sit.
Yeah, and speaking of Vegas, it kind of sparked somebody for me too, and I'll throw Chandler Stevenson in. 7 points in 6 games so far. At this point, anybody on Vegas is free money.
Well, Stevenson was good last year too.
Yeah, and they're 6-0 to start the season. Everybody is firing on all cylinders. Yeah, so if anybody on Vegas is on waivers, pick them up.
Yeah, honestly, at this point. All right, let's do some quick downtrends, and then we can shuffle into the last sections. All right, who do you got?
I will start with I'll start with a pair of goaltenders for the same reason. Sure. So everything I say can be said about both of them, and I'm going to go with Marc-Andre Fleury and Joonas Korpisalo. Both of them struggling out of the gate big time. Korpisalo has 2 games played. He faced about 40 shots in the first game and about 20 in the second, and he has a .865 save percentage. It's miserable. He allowed 5 goals on the first 16 shots against Detroit this week, and I don't know if Anton Forsberg is available. I would definitely be looking at him, but I wouldn't be looking at Korpisalo if you're looking for an Ottawa goaltender. And as for Marc-Andre Fleury, he usually does have slow starts, but he's 38 years old now, and now he's off to a really poor start. I mean, he's 1-1. It's only 2 games, like we talked about. Goaltender stats can be inflated, whether it's up or down, but he's just not looking good so far. So I don't have much confidence in him having a huge bounce back. Maybe be around a 900 goalie this year. But yeah, right now things with those 2 goaltenders are not looking good.
So I'll bring up my bold prediction from our goalies episode over the summer, where I said that I don't think Fleury hits 10 wins this year. Do you think it still could be something that dramatic? Or do you think he can get over that maybe 10, 12 win mark?
See, I forgot about that.
I have it in my notes. I always kept to bring it up just in case.
Gustafsson is obviously the starter. I mean, even right now, he's only got like a 906, but again, it's only a couple games. 10 wins. So let's say that he plays 30 games. Gustafsson plays 50.
And Wallstedt gets no call-up.
And Wallstedt gets... that's really tough. That's a tough line. I'm gonna go over, but not by much.
So what's your over?
I'm like 11, 12.
Okay. So but you do think he can hit the 10 at least.
I do think he can hit the 10. I'm going to go over the 10, but not by much.
Okay. So you think it's just a slow start, not a bad year incoming.
Yeah. I mean, is 11 wins a good year?
For a 38-year-old goaltender, it's not terrible.
Well, that's true. For a 38-year-old goaltender, that's not a bad year. But for a goaltender you're looking at in fantasy, 11 wins, I'm not wasting my time.
Who's a drop candidate at the moment for you?
For me, yes. Yeah.
Okay. I don't really have any, disagreements on points for Fleury or Korpisalo. The stats speak for themselves. I wouldn't drop Korpisalo, though. I would drop Fleury. I would just sit Korpisalo at the moment.
Yeah.
All right. I only really had one big downtrend player this week, and it's just because I've kind of been watching the Devils like a hawk, hoping that they would do a little bit more. But it's Dawson Mercer. He had a bunch of hot streaks last year, And he had some really, really good moments towards the end of last year. And I was really hoping that he would carry that into this season, especially being in the role that he is. But he's done nothing. He's got no points. His ice time is declining. He's a minus. Granted, the Devils aren't doing fantastic like we supposed or like we expected them to, but he's somebody that I was expecting a lot more out of, and literally he's done nothing worth of note for anything fantasy. I would straight up drop him at this point.
Yeah, it's that's really tough. That's really bold. I don't think I would be comfortable dropping Dawson Mercer. He is down on the third line now, playing in the center position, so he's adjusting. I don't know if they've changed that. I know he started the year there, but he was dominant.
Center right wing.
Yeah, okay, and I think he was on the third line to start the year. But yeah, if he can get back up in the top six, if Lindy Ruff says like, "What can we do to get you going? Let's put you on Jack Hughes' wing, move somebody else down," then he's going to be lights out again. But definitely, like Korpisalo, I'm not going to drop him, but I'll put him on the bench for a couple games just to wait and see how things start to roll out.
Fair enough. You got any more? Because that, like I said, that's the only one I had really for my downtrend. You got any others?
Yeah, I got one more, and it's Dominik Kubalik.
Okay.
He already a very, very streaky player, and he's not doing very well in Ottawa so far. He's getting some chances, but he's only got 6 shots on goal so far this year. No points. He has 1 hit and 1 block. Like he hasn't done anything. He's out for a free skate right now. At any time now, he could start lighting it up. That's what he does. He could get 5 goals in the next 6 games, and nobody would be surprised. But right now, he's a drop candidate for me.
Yeah, I like Kubalik as just a player in general. I just can't justify having him in fantasy unless I see him on that, ridiculous tear he goes on once a year. But beyond that, he's Victor Olofsson 2.0. Same type of player, same draft positioning, basically. They're both 7th round picks, and basically the same type of pathing to the NHL and the same type of scoring player. They're basically clones of one another, and they have the same type of issues, the inconsistency in their scoring across the board. But it's tough to find a spot for that on your fantasy roster unless you're in one of those really deep leagues where you're like, all right, I think this is the week he's going to get hot, and this is the time that I really need those bonus points. So it's a gut play, it's a hunch more than anything else. I say that's really the only time that I would go to pick him up is if you believe in the hot streak, but otherwise leave him on the waiver wire for someone else to let him do nothing.
Yeah, nobody has him in our 18-man league right now, which is very so. There's over 18, I don't know, over 200 players in our league that are on teams right now. Kubalik isn't one of them. So,
and sometimes that's just how it rolls. But as it is. Last thing, just to kind of go through, I just want to talk about a couple of teams that kind of had some slow starts and teams that are on hot streaks real quick. So people can kind of understand. Here's the teams to watch for pickups. Here's the teams to watch for either drops or benches. Starting with some slow teams while we're on the downtrend. I talked about Edmonton last week, but I'm still going to talk about Edmonton again this week because still a whole lot of nothing going on. Plus, McDavid is injured. Not sure how bad it is. Not sure if it's going to be a short-term, long-term, or if he will not miss any games whatsoever.
1 to 2 weeks.
Day-to-day. Is it 1 to 2 weeks? Because I saw day-to-day listed on both, so I didn't see the actual report. But still, that's something that hurts them. Yes, they still have Draisaitl, but not having McDavid in fantasy, that hurts you for 2 weeks, especially if you're in a week-to-week league. So that's going to be a struggle. The other slow team I had is the Devils. Hischier got injured, but Jack Hughes, on the other hand, is running their offense with his 10 points, which was league leading before today, and he was overtaken. But still, 10 points in such a short span of time to start the year, it's ridiculous. So not bad, but not good enough either. Watch those teams closely. Might want to panic for Edmonton if it continues into next week and beyond.
If I'm somebody holding on, and so during our draft, I tried very hard to get Evan Bouchard. If I have
Mhm.
him right now, I think I'm trying to get rid of him. I was a huge fan of him headed into this year.
We
He
both
has
were.
looked shockingly bad. Like his defensive efforts have not been good. Um, and it's just Edmonton is struggling right now, and that could be a big factor in it. It's just a whole team issue. But Evan Bouchard is worrying me right now, and if you have him on your team, he should be worrying you too.
Same with Stuart Skinner. And
Yes.
or Jack Campbell, if you believe that Campbell is the starter there. But
Yeah.
as far as our topics and what we discussed over the whole summer, we were both big believers in Bouchard. We were both big believers in, well, at least I was a big believer in Skinner. But overall, these are players that you wanted a lot more of and you're not getting. So
Yeah.
it's tough times in Edmonton at the moment.
Yeah.
Then we have just a few hot teams. I have three on my list. We talked about Vegas enough. I think we covered that. They're 6-0. Pick up people on Vegas. End of story. The Avalanche are kind of in the same boat as them.
Yep.
But at the same time, you're getting bonus points out of some players that you might not have expected. Arturi Lekkonen's putting up a pretty solid amount of points. He's on a nice hot streak. Ryan Johansson is finally producing decently, not up to ridiculous standards, but good. And on the flip side of that, Jonathan Drouin has one whole assist, and he's just fallen down the depth chart, which is disappointing.
Yeah. I think we both had Drouin as the potential steal of the draft.
Yeah.
In any fantasy drafts this year, has not worked very well so far.
It's kind of disappointing. I think we were all hoping for that explosive. He's playing with Nathan McKinnon. They'll finally get the chemistry back, and then we got nothing.
Yeah.
But I mean, beyond that, we also harped on it a bit. The Red Wings. Red Wings are hot. Red Wings are doing great. If you can find some Red Wings players still on your waiver wire, some that might still be there. Cop, I've seen him only rostered at about 50%. So he's probably somewhere swimming around there. Comfer is another one. He was rostered a little bit higher. I think it was 70 something percent, but still a chance that he's available there. Rasmussen, he was doing pretty well. I had him at rostered, it was like 12%. So he's someone that could fill a good depth role. And then there's James Reimer. If you need a backup goaltender, he has 0 goals against average.
And I'll throw Joe Veleno in there too. Veleno had a pretty good week this week. If you listen to the Grindline podcast, they were talking about how he was struggling so far. And then the last 2 games, he has 3 goals. He had a really good showing against Ottawa this week. So I'll just throw that in there too.
All right. Anything else you want to throw in there? Bring up any other players sticking out that you really feel you need to get it off your chest?
No, I don't think so. I mean, there's enough players that had one good game that are inflating their stats again. It's so hard this early in the season. But yeah, no, there's nobody that's really sticking out that we missed so far.
All right. Well, we'll end it there. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning into this week's episode of Fantasy Forecheck. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your preferred listening channel, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else, and to the Hockey Writers Podcast and YouTube pages, where you can find everything and anything else hockey related. You can always follow me on Twitter at Strozyk7.
And I'm on Twitter at Jacob Billington.
And you can feel free to drop us a like, leave a comment, and we'll keep you up to date on all things fantasy throughout the year. Thanks again, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next time.